This is Coffee Break with Jimmy, and we're talking a little bit about fraud and what was going on in Minnesota. But they claim that California's actually got bigger fraud, or say more fraud, going on here in the state of California than anywhere else. And I believe that. I believe that because we've been run by Democrats for, they say, 15 years. I say more like 30 years. We've been Democrat run, where the governors, our senators, our assembly, our state senators, so on, the House of Representatives, everything has gone the Democratic way. And a lot of that has to do with voter fraud. They harvest the votes out here. And I say that because I've experienced that just a little bit, because I used to belong to the California Republican Assembly. They have different ones in different counties. And I belong to the one that was locally here. And we all went out and gathered signatures to recall Gavin Newsom. And I would say the majority of the signatures that I got, because I asked them, what were they, what side of the fence were they on? Were they Republican, Democrat? Because I wanted to know. And for the most part, they were Democrats that were signing up to recall Gavin Newsom because they were tired of the things that he was doing. They didn't like, we can get into that a little bit about the bullet train, but there was a lot of things that were going on that just didn't work right with them. And now these were your normal middle of the road Democrats, and I think the country, not just California, but I think the whole country, has a lot of your middle of the road Democrats that could probably vote one way or the other. And I think a lot of them are getting tired of the way the Democratic Party conducts itself. Okay, now look at Trump and look what Trump's doing. And Trump is just, he's doing so well. And this has only been the first year of his administration. And there's another thing I want to talk about that too, about him running, actually could run in 28. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But the fraud that's going on here in California is pretty deep. We could talk about the bullet train. That's normal. I've talked about the bullet train many times. The bullet train was supposed to cost something like $6 billion or maybe up to $10 billion to complete the bullet train, which was supposed to go from Los Angeles to San Francisco. Now, they've already bought up a lot of the property. The infrastructure has been built to run the rails, but the rails haven't been laid. Not a foot of rails been laid yet. And they're already in the hole now. I've heard all different numbers. I've heard numbers as much as 133 billion. I think that's a little high. And then I heard numbers of 30 billion, and then you've heard numbers of 13 billion. So I don't know where it's at, but it's far, far more than what the original cost was going to be. So where's that money at? Is that fraudulently spent? I don't know. Maybe so. They're talking. I talked to a guy the other day. I said this on a podcast the other day. I spoke to this guy doing an environmental study. Okay, and this wasn't very long ago that he was doing this environmental study. And I said, so what's the study all about? And he goes, well, it's to see how the train is going to affect the environment here in the Central Valley. I said, okay, but they're already building the infrastructure, building the railways. They're, like I said, there's no track has been laid, but they've got overpasses they're building. I'm talking over here along Highway 43, with a lot of it's going in through Fresno, and a lot of this stuff has been done already at this point in time. And so you have this guy doing an environmental study. I said, aren't you a little bit late on that? Shouldn't you have done that a couple of years ago before they started building anything or buying any property up to set this all up? You have to understand this is already going. So I don't know what good the environmental study is going to do at this point in time. Well, that's what he was doing. That's what he was getting paid to do. And he was actually from Louisiana, I believe. So I met this guy a couple of times in a coffee shop, just a local coffee shop here. Now, when you look at that, that probably is a little bit fraudulent right there. I don't know. Maybe it's not. But it just seems to be, to me, it was a little bit wrong. Now, if you go through where the train is being built. Apparently I was going to go through Bakersfield, in through Fresno, along Highway 43 on up to Fresno, through Bakersfield. And that was going to encompass the Central Valley. So it was going to go through the Central Valley from Los Angeles to San Francisco. And this was largely in part, I think, being done. Now we've had different people say different things about it. But it's largely in part being done so this way the Central Valley can end up being a bedroom community for the rest of the state. And this is some of the best farm ground here. And not just in the United States, but in the country. I mean, in the world, rather. So they're going to use up all the best farm ground we have for homes, have the Central Valley here being a bedroom community. And it's already working in that direction. But I think, now I could be wrong, but my own opinion is, they got this train going up through Shafter. They don't want the bullet train going through Bakersfield itself. They're going through Fresno. That's a part of it's going through Fresno. You can see part of the industrial area in Fresno. They got the rails or the infrastructure built for the rails to go on above the industrial area in Fresno, and it's going to go through the city of Fresno. That's where they're going to have a major stop there, and the people will stop there. They'll get on the train, get off the train, so on and so forth. But that's where it's going right now, and it seems to me that it's going west of Bakersfield. And if it goes west of Bakersfield, and it's out in the Shafter area, which is west of Bakersfield, that means they're not going to have the train whip around, circle back around Bakersfield, and come up around Tehachapi and over through, Riverside County or San Bernardino County and come into L.A. from that direction. Because you got Tehachapi, the mountain range there, and above that is even higher than that. It's the Grapevine, right? And that's where I-5 goes through the Grapevine up through the valley and up into Los Angeles. I personally think it's going to go through Ojai. It's a lower part of the mountain range there, of which would be the coastal mountain range in California. So Ojai, and if it goes through Ojai, and so it won't have to go that high there. The mountain range is lower. And it's going on up over through Ojai and into Santa Barbara. And, guess what? That's where Pacific Palisades is, okay? They're going to go through Malibu in that area there. And maybe it's done by design. Maybe they're not building the homes there in Pacific Palisades because maybe California thinks they can get the land a little bit cheaper there for the rails to go through there. Maybe it'd be a stop there in Los Angeles for people who drive through the Pacific Palisades, and that's where the high-speed rail is going to go through. Go along the coastline there, going up through Orange County on into San Diego. This train can go a long ways, and that's more of a straight shot if you think about it, along the state of California instead of going around Riverside County or San Bernardino County, around Tehachapi Mountains there. This come along. It's going to go along the coast. There's some cliffs around through there, but the structure there, you're not going to dig a hole. Okay, you're not going to dig a hole through the Grapevine there to create a train to go through the mountains, because this is also earthquake area. Remember, one little earthquake. If you dig a tunnel, that tunnel will cave in a second. But so that it's hard to say. Now this is just my own idea. This is my opinion. But it could happen, and you think about it, because the Pacific Palisades burned down. Why did it burn down? Okay, so did Altadena also. That was simultaneously, both places pretty much burnt. But the Pacific Palisades along the coastline there, it's just kind of odd that, and no one's done anything there yet. They haven't started building there. They can't get permits. This Karen Bass, I don't know. We got to get her out of Los Angeles too. L.A., come on. You got to get somebody in there that can actually run the city there and do it properly. I mean, she's the one that dropped the ball there, or partially anyway. Her and Gavin Newsom, in tandem there, kind of dropped the ball on the Santa Ana winds coming through there, and they said they're going to be greater. They were notified of that, but she still went on vacation. And there was no water in the reservoirs up above there to fill up the hydrants to put the fires out. And there's more stuff that goes along through that. But that's a lot of that along through there. You got to say there's some kind of fraud that exists through there. And you're actually talking about, let's talk about the homeless here. in the state of California. There used to be a time when I was a kid. Now I'm a little bit older, so I've seen some things, okay? I've been through time a little bit here in the state of California, actually when it was better. But I can remember the Southern Pacific going down the rails in Tulare, because actually the Southern Pacific, once in a while you would see a hobo on the train. They would have they would go right through here. The Southern Pacific goes down the Central Valley, goes through Fresno County, Tulare County, Kern County, and on up through and up into toward that area up there. And I don't know if it comes back around to Tehachapi, the Southern Pacific does or not, but I know it goes all the way through the state of California, well, along this train rails here that goes through all these counties here in the Central Valley. Now, you would see on the Southern Pacific once in a while, you would see what we'd call a hobo. Somebody sitting on the rails, on the train, and he'd have a bag, and there was always the cartoon with the hobo with the stick and the little round bag on the stick, and that's what he would carry through there. I don't know that I ever saw anything like that, but someone going through there once in a while, and that was your homeless. That's what homelessness consisted of at that time. This was back in the 60s and 70s. But now you have, in every city you have in the state of California, you have homelessness encampments or tent cities where they have people that are staying there. And these tents are right next to one another. And the people can stay there. They get a tent. They don't have to pay rent on it, but they stay in this homeless encampment. And you have food trucks that come by through there to distribute food to help feed the people. And you have medical vans that'll come through there, and once in a while, once a week, once every 2 weeks, and help treat people that are sick and need medication. So they have their free amenities there that go along with these homeless camps. But the homeless camps, you could do all the drugs you want. No one's going to say anything. They got you locked in there, and and there's people in there that just they want to live that lifestyle. They want to live the drug lifestyle, okay? They want to continue doing what they want to do. They also have places in the state of California where they've taken old hotels and revamped them, redone them. And the homeless can stay there, but you can't do drugs. This is a transition period where you can stay there, but you got to try to transition from being homeless, get a job, get back on your feet. There are a lot of people out there that want that, and they're homeless not on their own volition. They're homeless because it's for whatever reason they've had a bad stroke of luck or what have you. But you got the ones that are doing drugs, that are mentally disabled, that are there, and they just want to be there. They just want to do this, and they're willing to stay in these tent cities. And so some of that stuff, it's hard to get people out of that. I think there are different things that you can do to help them out, but a person has to want to help themselves also in order to get out of that rut. But they say this 54, I think I heard this number, $54 billion that Gavin Newsom has allotted for the homeless camps. I don't see that. When you see these homeless encampments, that's, I hear maybe a few $1,000s that they may be putting out on these homeless encampment, but not $54 billion. Come on. That's, our state budget is $350 billion a year. And you're telling me that, what would be 1/6 or so, or 1/7 of that would be just for the homeless itself? I don't see that much. I don't see that money going anywhere. I think somebody maybe might be pocketing that money or lining their pockets anyway. They don't know where that money's at. So there's a lot of fraud that exists here in the state of California. And they say that it's worse than it is in Minnesota. Minnesota, that's the Somali encampment up there where the Somalians, and DOJ is going to come in there and they're going to investigate all that. And I think who's ever broke the law, I've spoke about this in podcasts before, whoever's broke the law up there, they need to spend some time in jail because they are here legally now. They're not legal citizens, but they're here legally. And if you're here legally and you've ripped us off for this amount of money and from a fraud standpoint, well then you're probably not going to get that money back, but you can put their butts in jail. Let them sit in jail for a little while, and then maybe when they get out, then deport them back to their original country. Venezuelans are actually they're coming here doing the right thing. They try to get from they say 8 to 10 million people, Venezuelans, applied for asylum to come here to the United States. They come here and they work. I know a few of them that have come here in the state of California that I've known worked in the area from Venezuela, and they were working. They came here and they worked. They're trying to assimilate themselves. If they get asylum granted to them, then they're here legally. And if they're doing the right thing, then they're here legally. The Somalians aren't doing that. They got asylum from Somalia. They were brought here by Obama and Biden, I believe, is who brought the Somalians all here. Ilhan Omar was elected by the Somalians because of that's her constituency, if you will. And I think she's part of the fraud there in Minnesota. And we have that here in the state of California too. I don't know if it's the same thing, but we do have a lot of fraud here. And I just mentioned a couple things. They're going to come here to California. I guess DOJ is supposed to be here soon. They're going to send some people from the government out here to look into these different things that are going on here. And I know they want to send ICE in over here also to get some of the illegal aliens are here. And there's a lot here in the state of California. If they're going to do that, they need to set up a plan. They also need help from the local police departments. This thing that happened there, that shouldn't have happened in Minneapolis, but that one woman got shot. But apparently she thought, and she was being paid. Now there's an organization that sends people around the country and said, this is where ICE is going. You got to go in there, and they'll pay you to go in there and cause havoc there, and, for the ICE agents there, and they'll pull their car out there in the road and block ICE agents so they can't move. They don't respect them whatsoever. But if you had the local police department in there to tell them, you want to protest, you have the right to protest. But to stop people from doing their jobs legally, especially law enforcement, that's something's got to be done about that. But if you go now, I did mention, and I think I beat this horse up quite a bit, and I hope that the administration comes in and does the right thing. But I think Donald Trump can actually run for another term. I've spoke about this before. 2028, I think he can. In the Constitution, it says that you can run for two, and some form factor says that you can run for 2 consecutive terms, right? And that's what they usually do. They get one term, then they'll run for the second term, and they're usually back to back. It doesn't ever happen where I think was it Grover Cleveland was elected twice on 2 separate terms. I think it was him. He can correct me if I'm wrong. But Donald Trump had 2 separate terms. They're not consecutive terms. Who's to say that he can't run for a consecutive term following this one? Because he was ripped off. He was ripped off in the 2020 election, and we all know that. And they've proven that, and they brought everything out, because there's no way Joe Biden's going to get 81 million votes to Donald Trump's 77 million, or whatever the number is, but it's somewhere around that neighborhood. I'm sorry, they didn't have that many people that were going to vote. This was all fraudulent voting. This could have been harvesting also, across the United States. Biden did not win the 2020 election, but he was president. He was president for that 4 years, and has just screwed the country all up. Trump is already getting things going back in the right direction. I say to you, Democrats, middle-of-the-road Democrats, independents, let's vote to get this country back on track. And that's whatever you want to say. They I don't know why they hate Donald Trump so much, only because he's getting rid of their cash cow. And a lot of people, a lot of these politicians, I think that's what has a lot to do with it. A lot of them are losing their cash cow because Donald Trump's not allowing this fraud to go on. How we're getting ripped off by our own country, and much less other countries. That's all coming to a stop. But in 2028, if he's still cognitive, and of course he's going to be, Is early 80s maybe, but I tell you, the guy right now is sharp as can be. And you have other people that are out there sharp in their 80s and 90s, and they're still sharp as can be. Maybe Trump will still be that way, and maybe he won't want to. Maybe he'll want to spend more time with his family, and I can respect that. But right now, he still spends a lot of time with his family. His family is all intertwined with the presidency and his administration, and they're helping him out. And they do things together all the time. So I can't see that being an issue, but it might be. But in 2028, I think Trump can run again, because it might take another 4 years of what he's doing now to get this country back on track. And I'm talking all the fraud that's going on. They say I don't even know the percentage. I'm not going to sit here and tell you a percentage, but I don't really know what it is. But it's a great percentage of our taxpayer dollars, federal taxpayer dollars mainly, that's going unchecked. That's being fraudulently borrowed or stolen. People's pockets are getting lined, whether they're senators or congressmen, whoever. They're lining their pockets. Okay, they're lining their pockets, and this has been going on for some time. But I hope when the administration sends its people over here, HHS, and to find out the fraud that's going on here in California. And if they do decide to send ICE here, we need to if you want to let people know that ICE is going to come here, also tell law enforcement, local law enforcement, and have them on duty, have them arresting people that are getting out of line. They can protest, but if they're getting out of line and stopping ICE from doing their job, I think local law enforcement should be partners with them. They're all law enforcement, right? So. But anyhow, so we're going to see what happens with the fraud in California. In the next few days, I'm assuming it's going to be maybe after this weekend, early next week. They're going to start looking into that. And if they're not looking into it already, and they got different ideas, but they say that California there's more fraud that exists here in the state of California than any other state in the union. So let's see what happens. And I believe that. I do believe that. Anyhow, maybe I gave you guys enough to think about. But the fraud in California exists big time. This is Coffee Break with Jimmy. Please subscribe, hit that like button, share please. And here pretty soon I'm gonna start doing some live to where other people we can entertain one another, talk to one another, and have others' opinions and what they're thinking, and it can contradict my opinions, because I'm not always 100% right, but these are my opinions. But please subscribe, and we will see you next time on Coffee Break with Jimmy. Thanks.